So my original thought for making this video, or I guess idea behind it, was like, okay, this was before the Ilia Topuria moving up to lightweight thing, completely shaking up fucking everything for the featherweight and lightweight divisions. But I was thinking about how a big reason of why people weren't liking Topuria versus Makhachev is, oh, the featherweight allegations, and Makhachev already whooped a featherweight once or twice, and he doesn't need to do it again. It's a pee-wee weight class, which is a bunch of pee-wee bullshit. Because the featherweights, while I do think that there's too many inactive fighters in the upper echelon of the rankings, or I do think some of them don't have the most brash personalities or exciting fighting styles, I gotta say, man, the featherweights are one of the most skilled divisions pound for pound in the UFC. Like, they have some of the best strikers or the best wrestlers or some of the most well-rounded guys, but it's a division that gets a lot of praise yet overlooked at the same time. Meanwhile, the lightweight, which is just the S-tier division of all fucking divisions, especially now with Ilia Topuria fucking in it, I wanted to do the comparison where I kind of broke down the top 15 of both divisions, and I did number 15 versus number 15 for the lightweights and featherweights, and then like number 10 versus number 10, blah blah blah. Pretty much everyone in the rankings for featherweight and lightweight, I'm going to be kind of fantasy matchmaking each other against. And again, I had this idea before Topuria moved up to lightweight and vacated the title, really fucking shaking up the landscape of everything. But you know what? I decided to make this video anyways because Topuria moving up kind of kills the argument a little bit, because at that point Topuria just makes the division even deeper and there's even more matchups, and like as if lightweight already didn't have enough amazing names or powerful personalities or exciting guys or former legends or current whatever the fuck. Now Topuria's up there in the mix, so lightweight got even more stacked. So fair play. But basically just starting this off with the number 15 Dan Ige for the featherweights going against Benoit Saint Denis for the lightweights. Now BSD a year or two ago, man, you couldn't talk about this guy like he wasn't just the aura merchant of all aura merchants, the next top guy. You know, oh, you can't sleep on this guy's striking, the power, the grappling, man. He's curled up like a Muppet, but he'll hit you like 1-2. But the thing is, BSD, man, going 0-2 in his last two has really kind of depleted all the hype he had going for him. I do think that the skill set is still there. Like, he does have solid striking, solid pop behind his shots, solid grappling. But in general, I think that Dan Ige would be able to get the better of him. And listen, I just want to clarify this as well. When I'm talking about these matchups, it's not really going down at like this fight's going down at 145 or 155. Like, it's kind of just a neutral ground of who skill for skill is just superior. You know what I mean? And I do think that Dan Ige edges him out, man. Like, Ige's not the craziest talent in the world. He is very beatable himself, but I just think that he has better experience that would help him outlast a guy like BSD. I think BSD would come the fuck forward and put on a lot of pressure right out the gate in round one, but I think that a guy like Ige with his good chin, with his good experience, with a solid fight IQ, and Ige is solidly well-rounded in his own regard. I mean, obviously he wants to keep the fight on the feet. He's a lot more comfortable with the striking, but the dude knows how to wrestle to a solid extent. You know what I mean? So honestly, man, I think that Ige would survive the storm, and then rounds 2 and 3, I feel like he would just kind of take over. Ige's the guy who knows how to be patient, but he also knows how to put forward a good pressure on guys. And BSD is just, we got to see, now they're feeding him to fucking Joel Alvarez, so the end of BSD could be coming in 2025, but I do think that Dan Ige would beat him. I do think that BSD is still a good fighter. He's still solid. I think he could beat a lot of the guys outside the rankings for sure, but it's just, right now, man, he's in the fucking full-fledged Shark Tank in the top 15, so he can't really get any exceptions, unfortunately. So moving on, up next to number 14, Grant Dawson for the lightweights, taking on Calvin Kattar for the featherweights. This is one of those just random ass matchups. There's actually a solid amount of these that you're going to see in this video, but very random matchup. Obviously, Kattar isn't a guy who's too comfortable on the ground. I mean, we've seen it in the past, but most recently, it's probably going to be the Aljamain Sterling performance. Like, Zalal really didn't try and take the fight to the ground really at all, or too much. Kind of was just standing and banging and or running away. But Calvin Kattar, man, is just a guy who's not too comfortable on the ground. Like, he's a striker at heart. He wants to keep his fights in the feet. And you have a guy like Grant Dawson, who is just the complete opposite end of the spectrum. He just kind of wants to just completely take all of his fights to the ground as soon as possible. He wants to ragdoll you down there, really rack up control time. He has developing and good ground and pound, so he has a lot going for him on the ground game side of things. He's got the good old USA wrestling, which I do think, like we're talking about, like we have Guru making a big argument for him and all this shit, and like a lot of people are getting behind it. Even myself, like that the USA wrestling is a bit overrated and we got to actually see it. Action's got to speak a little bit louder than words here, you know what I'm saying? So we got to see these guys kind of incorporate that shit more effectively. against high-level competition, you know? But Grant Dawson, I do think, regardless of that, he is still one of the best wrestlers in the division, even though right now he's only ranked 14. I see this guy going up and up, but I think that he would be beating Calvin Kattar here. This is going to be 1-1 now for the lightweights and the flyweights. I just think that Dawson's grappling would be too much for him, and I don't know if you want to make the argument that Dawson's wrestling is better or not than like Aljamain Sterling's, but if Sterling was able to just shut him down that effectively, I think Dawson would actually try and even get the fuck after it a little bit more. Still be able to efficiently utilize just racking up the control time and keeping him down there, applying a good pressure, and then maybe the fight even ends with some ground and pound, because I think Dawson is more willing than a guy like Sterling to kind of get the fuck after it and bite down on the mouthpiece a little bit, you know what I mean? Not just kind of coast it out. Like Dawson is totally comfortable, as we've seen, with kind of coasting out the fight a little bit and just kind of winning a decision. But also there's that side of him that likes to get the fuck after it. We saw it in the round 1 or 2 in his last fight. He was very explosive on the feet, which was a nice change of pace. And then obviously in the grappling exchanges, like we saw some decent scrambles. We saw him trying to get after it with ground and pound. In the fight before that, Dawson had a nice ground and pound finish. Like when Dawson wants to put the pedal on the fucking metal, get after on the gas, he knows how to make the grappling entertaining and put on a bit of a war down there, and uses it very effectively and efficiently. So yeah, I think that Dawson would edge him out. Kattar's a good striker in his own right, you know, really good chin. It's hard to take him out of there. And his takedown defense is solid, don't get me wrong, but it's like going against a guy like Dawson, who that's his bread and butter. I think Dawson would kind of whoop Kattar in that department. So I probably like a 30-27 or a 29-28 or some shit. But moving on up next to another just completely random matchup here. Number 13 for the featherweights, Bryce Mitchell, brother, going against Jalen motherfucking Turner. Just another one of those random fucking matchups, dude. But honestly, I'm gonna be giving another one to the lightweights here. Jalen Turner, I just feel like would piece the fuck out of Bryce Mitchell, dude. I think that Jalen Turner's takedown defense is good enough and solid enough to where Bryce Mitchell would be able to get him down a few times for sure. But I just think the size difference here, like Jalen is a big guy for lightweight standards, and Bryce is kind of on the shorter and smaller end of things for featherweight. So that's kind of a matchup size wise, and just when you look at the reach and all that shit, like it's gonna be a little bit easier maybe when you look at it in that regard for Bryce to get the takedowns. But it's also like Jalen's takedown defense is fucking solid. He's quick for a lightweight. He has a lot of pop behind his shots. The fight IQ for Jalen Turner, not the best, all right? But I do think with the solid enough takedown defense, with the clear power advantage on the feet, and if he is able to kind of just maintain the distance well, dictate where the fight goes, pick and choose the right shots, kind of snipe him out of there, I think that's how Jalen Turner would get it done. He has kind of just a lot of the advantages here, but Mitchell could give him a fucking lot of problems. Who knows though? I mean, Mitchell has multiple kind of ways of winning, you know. I could maybe see a submission here. I could maybe see him kind of just racking up a lot of control time and winning a boring ass decision. I could just see him running out of the cage, grabbing the holy fucking Bible and just come back in and beating it over Turner's head. But I don't know, man. I'm just gonna be leaning towards Jalen Turner on this one. It's a very weird fucking matchup. Kind of weird to predict here, but going on to number 12 versus number 12, Yusuf Salal, who was freshly into the rankings, going against Paddy the fucking Baddy Lad. Now, here's the thing, man. I don't want to just keep giving all these to the lightweights, but I think I'm going to be giving this one to Paddy Pimblett. Yusuf Salal, don't get me wrong, is a pretty well-rounded fighter. Like, this whole redemption arc that he's had coming back to the UFC, I love to fucking see it. And he's a guy who, little humbled personality, brother, but also knows how to kind of get the fuck after it. You could tell he's very excited about fighting, excited about what's next. I can fucking appreciate that, alright? Even if the motherfucker was running around in that third round against Kattar, I still think that it was a good performance before that third round. People are shitting on the fight as a whole, but honestly, for the first and second round, it was kind of a really nice striking display coming from Yusuf Salal. Very patient, technical with it, was maintaining the distance well, landing all the right shots, frustrating a guy like Kattar in there, and then you just had it come into the third round, and the running away, yeah, that was a bunch of bullshit, alright? And you hate to see that kind of shit, but overall, I don't think that takes anything away from Salal. Like, I do think the guy's a good fighter. We've seen him rack up a lot of submission wins. We know how dangerous his ground game is, but also, man, I do think he's a very patient, technical striker who knows how to hold his own up there. He's very quick, very swift with it, very precise. But against a guy like Paddy Pimblett, who in his own regard I feel like is pretty well-rounded, he's the better of the two grapplers here. Like, I think that Paddy just has that advantage down there if the fight was able to get to the ground. But also in terms of the striking, like, I think you could argue the slight power advantage of who has a little bit more pop in the shots would go to Paddy Pimblett. Again, these guys don't have too much combined, but it's enough to where it could be a problem for certain guys. And Paddy Pimblett's striking has been evolving so much much in the past few years, or the past couple of years, I should say. Hasn't been too fucking long, Jesus Christ. The dude looked prepubescent only like 5 years ago, so speaking relatively here, but I like the improvements we've been seeing from Paddy. The Chandler fight's gonna fucking say a lot, how he's gonna deal with a relentless, explosive fucking striker with a lot of power in Chandler, but we'll fucking see, man, how he handles that kind of pressure and pace. But I would lean towards Paddy Pimblett here. I feel like this fight would honestly be kind of a dud, to be honest with you, and as good as I do think that Zalal is, alright, I'm not just fucking throwing him into the wolves here because of the running away shit and all that bullshit. I do think he's a good fighter, but unfortunately I think that Paddy just kind of edges him out here. Both these guys are solidly well-rounded with kind of their specific keys to victory, don't get me wrong, but overall I'm leaning towards Paddy. Not to do the lightweights like this, or sorry, the featherweights like this, because they're fucking 1-3 right now. But moving on, up next to number 11 versus 11, Giga Chikadze versus Rafael Fiziev. Now, this is kind of like one of those like sneaky good matchups. You know, this is a fight that you would never fucking think about, like Giga Chikadze versus Rafael Fiziev. What the fuck is that? And to be fair, it makes no goddamn sense. We would never ever see someone like that. Imagine just cut to 2028, now they're fucking fighting in the Apex. Fiziev versus Chikadze, honestly on paper, should be a pretty fun fight, like with Chikadze's kickboxing background and Fiziev's Muay Thai. Like, I feel like these two would be down to fucking scrap. I feel like the clear power advantage here is gonna go to Fiziev. I mean, don't get me wrong, Chikadze is fucking dangerous on the feet. He's dynamic, he knows how to mix it up well, keeps the opponents guessing, he's quick. I think that the power advantage, and I just think overall, who's gonna be able to impose their style, the better of who. I think that it would be going to Rafael Fiziev here. I just think he's just a bigger guy with more power, and I like just what I see out of the feet on him more. Like, I do think that Fiziev's a guy who is overrated. I've openly said that in the past. I do think he's slightly overrated, but I do still think he's good, and especially relatively when you're comparing it to guys like Chikadze, who's solid, don't get me fucking wrong, alright? Great striker, but overall, I would be just giving the advantage to Fiziev here, but very random ass matchup. But going on to number 10 versus number 10, Renato Moicano for the lightweights, and the Ron Murphy, bruv, for the featherweights. Now, I'm a huge Money Moicano fan, alright? I want to fucking make that loud and clear. Ron Murphy, easy money, brother. Islam Makhachev, not so easy money, brother. But I know that I've been giving a lot of these fights to the lightweights here, but I'm gonna be going back and giving this one to Lerone Murphy. As good as I think that Moicano is, as much as I love the personality, show me the money pod, I fuck with Moicano, one of my favorites, especially for the lightweights. But dude, as good as I think Moicano's grappling is, and I do think his striking is solid enough to kind of hang in there with a lot of guys who don't have like explosive power or like an insane pressure, I do think that Murphy is just clearly the more well-rounded fighter here. Like, he's not super great at any one particular thing, but he's good at everything. Like, he's got good wrestling offensively and defensively. He's got good cardio, good striking, and I feel like he has good fight IQ. Like, he knows how to utilize everything pretty well, pace everything out. Not the most exciting fighter in the world, and that does kind of hold him back. Focuses a little bit too much on the patience and technicality, but he keeps fucking winning. I do think that Lerone Murphy would have the advantage in the striking. I do think that the cardio, you could argue, might even be able to go to Murphy. Moicano's not exactly the biggest pressure fighter in the world either. When he gets after it, he gets the fuck after it. But against a guy like Lerone Murphy, who defensively is solid everywhere on the feet and on the ground, I really don't know what Moicano is going to be able to do to get him out via finish. And when it comes to a decision, I just think that Lerone Murphy's striking would be too much. I think that he would pick and choose all the right shots, frustrate Moicano in there, and be able to hold his own on the ground enough to where Moicano wouldn't be able to do too much, or if he's even able to get to the ground too much. So overall, I would lean towards Lerone Murphy here. As much as I love Money Moicano, alright, it is what it fucking is. So moving on, up next here to number 9, Beneil Dariush versus number 9, Aljamain Sterling. Now, I'm gonna be going with Aljamain Sterling on this one. I just think his grappling would be too much here. But Beneil Dariush, don't get me wrong, he's gonna have the power advantage on the feet, and he's also gonna have the striking advantage. That's clearly there. Sterling is a pillow puncher who kind of just looks kind of goofy on the feet sometimes, alright? He's solid enough to where he can kind of hold his own, but eventually, like, he's going to want to take all of his fights to the ground. Some a lot sooner than others. It depends how comfortable he is on the feet with the other guy, but, like, Sterling, when it comes to out-wrestling guys, 9 times out of 10, especially for, like, the divisions that he's in, he's going to win that battle. Like, his grappling is very, very good. He has championship-level experience, good fight IQ, even though he fucking stinks it up sometimes, alright? It is unfortunate when we do get to see that. But Sterling, man, he has good at fight IQ, and he knows what he has to do to win. And his grappling is dangerous as fuck. Not in terms of just getting submissions or really just fucking racking up a lot of ground and pound. All right, it's not very dangerous at all when it comes to that. But it's dangerous in regards to, like, it really is his strongest asset, and it really helps him get the win a lot of the time. Like, if Sterling just got the fuck after a little bit more, all right, with the ground and pound or just beating guys up down there, it would be a lot more entertaining. It would be appreciated. We got guys like Fluffy Hernandez, others who know how to make grappling entertaining. But Sterling, man, it is efficient and it is effective. And I do think against Dariush, who Dariush has good grappling as well. Dariush is clearly going to be the more well-rounded fighter here because Dariush has good cardio. He's got good striking and he has good wrestling. But at the end of the day, I just think that Sterling's wrestling would be able to just efficiently, if we're just talking skill for skill, I feel like it would just be able to overwhelm Dariush. Dariush is solid down there, don't get me wrong. I just think that Sterling would be too much. But Benny definitely could make a lot of problems for Sterling on the feet. I could definitely see Benny even taking out Sterling's fucking lights, as crazy as that is. But moving on, up next to number 8, Mateusz Gamrot versus number 8, Josh Emmett. Why do I feel like this would low-key be a banger? Alright, I know that Mateusz Gamrot low-key has some fucking duds a lot of the time, but when you see the fight against Arman Tsarukyan or Dan Hooker or shit like that, you get these glimmers of hope like, damn, he can get the fuck after it when he wants to. And I love to see that from Gamrot, even though a lot of the time we don't get to. But when he wants to put the pedal on the fucking metal, I feel like him and Emmett would honestly be a really good fight. But overall, I'm going to be going, I know I was giving the featherweights a couple of wins right there with Murphy and Sterling, but I'm going to be going with Mateusz Gamrot here. I mean, don't get me wrong, Emmett is very fucking durable. It's hard to take him out via submission. It's hard to take him out via some kind of KO. He's durable as fuck. I mean, that's the guy that made Topuria. He wasn't able to just efficiently get him out of there as good as he did Volk or Holloway or all these other guys. So Emmett is durable as fuck, hard to finish. And the thing is, it's very fortunate for him because Gamrot's not the biggest finisher in the world either. Don't get me wrong, it happens once every blue fucking moon. But at the end of the day, Gamrot, man, like, I feel like he's going to want to just try and, I think he's going to mix it up if these guys were to fight, but I think he would know kind of the power and the striking danger, or sorry, I should word it as, he knows the danger that Emmett brings with the power and with the striking. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Emmett is overrated in some regards. I do think his stats or power get a little bit blown out of proportion sometimes. But at the end of the day, I'm going to put respect in it. Like, I think the guy is a good striker, very durable, hard to finish, has good cardio. And against a guy like Mateusz Gamrot, I could see Emmett giving him a lot of fucking problems. But I just think that Gamrot would be able to mix it up efficiently. Like, Gamrot's striking is underrated. It doesn't have a lot of pop behind the shots, but when he wants to put on the volume, it's actually surprisingly pretty effective. But if he just had a little more power, it could help him out there. But at the end of the day, I think Gamrot would be able to kind of hold his own enough on the feet and avoid Emmett's like biggest shots, and then be able to efficiently take it to the ground, where I don't think that Emmett would have too much for him. Emmett's much more comfortable on the feet. So yeah, I would just be going with Mateusz Gamrot here. But moving on, up next to number 7 for the featherweights, Arnold Allen going against Michael fucking Chandler. What a random ass matchup, but honestly, this is another one where it could be like a sneaky good fight, you know what I mean? But I'm gonna be leaning towards Arnold Allen on this one. I'm gonna be going with Arnold Allen on this one. Listen, I think that Chandler is dangerous as fuck, has a lot of power. He like when he puts the pressure on guys, right? He like almost beat Oliveira, Gaethje, Poirier. He really had these guys in some close fucking waters. But at the end of the day, with his dipshit fight IQ and the fact that he kind of gasses out of there after the first couple of rounds, and his wrestling is solid, but he never fucking uses it, and it's just kind of there existing in the back fucking pocket. Sometimes defensively, Chandler looks really fucking solid, and once every blue goddamn moon, you'll see him use it offensively. But at the end of the day, he's just gonna stand and bang and put a lot of pressure on you, and he hits like a fucking truck. Again, there's not a lot this guy's working with in the fucking Chrome Dome department, alright? Lacking in the chromies, homie. But at the end of the day, he is dangerous for every single lightweight. As crazy as to say, even Makhachev and Tsarukyan and Oliveira, they gotta fucking be worried in there. Like, as wild as it is to say, because Chandler is just not the craziest talent we've seen or anything in the world like that. He kind of is just a one-trick pony in some regards. But it's a credit to him, I guess, that even though the motherfucker is just built like a box of rocks, he still has motherfuckers guessing, still keeps motherfuckers on their toes, and still, you know, makes them think like, all right, I'm still dangerous. But going against Arnold Allen, I just think that skill for skill wise, Allen is just better. And listen, you could argue that Chandler is the better wrestler, but I don't know, I just like what I've seen out of Allen a little bit more. Especially kind of defensively, like I know that Chandler has the whole wrestling credibility background, and I know that he has solid moments that we've seen from him down there, and we haven't seen too much in general from Allen, because both these guys, I mean, Allen's primarily a striker, Chandler's for sure a fucking striker, so we don't see a lot of wrestling from these guys. But I don't know, I just think Allen is just the more well-polished, crisper, cleaner fighter, like does everything a little bit more, a lot more patient and technical, picks and chooses the right shots, but he also knows how to keep up a good pace and get the fuck after it. I'm not saying like a Chandler pace, but he does know how to hold his own, and we've seen entertaining fights against guys like Evloev or Holloway or shit like that, Chikadze. Allen knows how to fucking scrap. Not the biggest finisher in the world or anything like that, but he has a good chin, good striking, a good base, good cardio. Smart fucking kid, and you could say whatever you want about if these guys were to actually fight. Chandler could take his fucking lights out in a round. I could totally fucking see that, but at the end of the day, we're just talking skill for skill here, and I do think that Allen edges him out overall. So moving on up next to number 6 versus number 6, Brian Ortega versus Dan Hooker. Now this one's tricky, man. You could argue this could be a fucking pick'em because who would be able to get the better of who? I mean, this is just purely a battle of styles and battle of wills here because Ortega's very elite grappling, and you know, he has a chin like a motherfucker. He gets rocked relatively easily or quickly within that first round or two, but like he's always able to survive. That's the thing. It's very hard to actually take out Ortega on the feet, especially on the ground. You know what I mean? We all know how elite his ground game is, but his striking, you know, it's solid enough to where he's able to kind of hold his own. You know, we've seen him at times be able to piece up guys. Rare occasions, you know what I mean? But still a thing. Or you have Dan Hooker on the other end who fucking very defensively sound on the ground. Like he has good takedown defense, good submission defense, but at the end of the day, his striking is just clearly what gets him there. Like he's here to stand and fucking bang. One of the pound for pound most entertaining fighters in the entire roster. He's just here to swing and bang, and he has clearly, I feel like, more pop behind his shots. Hooker is better at kind of putting forward the pressure and handling pressure, and I do think that I would lean towards Dan Hooker to win this one. I'm sorry that I keep giving a lot of these to the fucking lightweights. A lot of these are close though, man. Like Ortega and Hooker is a close fight. I really don't know who definitively would get the better of who, or whose skill set I feel like you could consider more impressive. But dude, I just think that Hooker, I think, edges him out a little bit with the slight more pop in his shots. Hooker also has a really good chin. I know Ortega does too, but besides the random ass like featherweight weight cut, like Hooker is fucking durable, you know? He's had his fair share of wars. He has good experience. He's more active, I guess, if we're trying to consider shit like that. I know that these are just fantasy matchups, so I don't know how much that shit actually matters. But skill for skill-wise, man, like I think that Hooker's defensive grappling is enough to where Ortega would be able to get him down a few times, maybe even get close to a sub. But I just think that if Hooker's able to survive as well as he did on the ground against a guy like Gamrot, who's gonna, I feel like, even put more pressure and urgency to get the fight to the ground than a guy like Ortega, just that's how he fucking fights, then that gives me hope for what Hooker would do against a guy like Brian Ortega. So yeah, Ortega's clearly got the grappling, but Hooker's clearly got the striking here. I guess that you just kind of have to choose what you want to value and prioritize more when trying to pick who would win here. But overall, I'm gonna be leaning with and going with Dan Hooker. So moving on up next, number 5. This is going to be kind of a void here because let's talk about hey, it is what it is, brother. Sized elephant in the room because Holloway is ranked for both divisions here. He's ranked number 2 at featherweight and number 5 at lightweight. So I'm just going to cancel these out. So we're going to be just skipping this. So number 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to be what we're actually talking about. And for featherweight, we're just going to boost those guys up. So we're going to put Yair as 4, Evloev as 3, just for an example, because Holloway is at 2, and we're going to cancel him out of here for the featherweight and the lightweight ranking. So hopefully that fucking makes sense. Basically, me no talk about Holloway, okay? So moving on now to number 4. This is a very random fucking matchup, but this is where we start to get cooking, all right? All these fights, except maybe one of them, are really fucking bangers. So Dustin Poirier. Hey, it is what it is, dude. All right, this dude's a dirtbag. Going against Yair Rodriguez. I feel like this fight would be so much fun on the feet. All right, we all know how good of strikers Yair and Poirier are, but in different regards. Like Yair is much more of a kickboxer, a lot more dynamic, kind of explosive, very quick. And then Poirier, you know, just kind of a crisp, solid boxer who has a lot more power. I wouldn't say a lot more power because Rodriguez can take motherfuckers' lights out. Very explosive in there, but you know what I'm saying though. Like two different kind of strikers, and I feel like this is a matchup that nobody would ever really expect to happen or think about, but on paper it's fucking beautiful. Get Anthony Smith's bitch ass in here for this one. But overall, man, I would be going with Dustin Poirier. Like Rodriguez could take out anybody's lights, man. I'm confident of that. Like the dude is just so relentless in there. His striking is so clean, so wild, so entertaining to watch. And also, you know, defensively on the ground, I feel like his skills are underrated. We even saw him fucking submit Josh Emmett of all things. But Poirier is not going to try and really take this fight to the ground. You know what I mean? I feel like this would just kind of be a stand and bang fight. Both these guys are going to be confident, I feel like, in what they would bring to the table. But Poirier's championship experience, I feel like he's just seen guys who hit harder or move quicker or shit like that. So Poirier has fucking seen it all, and most of the time he's won. So I do think that he would apply that experience to this one and would be able to beat Yair Rodriguez. But Yair could give him problems, man. But I just think Poirier's experience, how good his chin is, I think with his good striking. Don't get me wrong, like Poirier is hittable. He can get rocked. He can get finished. He is not invincible in there. But I do think that against a guy like Yair Rodriguez, I would just favor Dustin Poirier. But it's a banger matchup, striker versus striker spectacle in two different regards. But it is what it is. It is what it is, better. So moving on, up next to number 3 versus number 3, Movsar Evloev for the featherweights and Justin motherfucking Gaethje for the lightweights. Now, this is the one where if you don't want to think this is a banger, that's pretty understandable. And listen, I shit on Evloev pretty openly about how I think he's one of the most boring goddamn fighters on the roster. The dude has really good wrestling, underrated striking, good cardio, good fight IQ. Like, Evloev is a good fighter, but the dude's lack of finishing ability, he's a pillow puncher. Like, this is a very ironic matchup if you think about it. Like, you have one of UFC's most highlight reel guys, like one of the most entertaining fighters in Justin Gaethje, tries to get finishes or wars whenever the fuck he can, all the time, and then you have Evloev, who is just the complete opposite. Evloev's been putting on fun fights in his last 2 or 3 fights. The fight against Allen, the fight against Sterling, there's another one in there I'm fucking missing, but Evloev has kind of been bringing it lately. But that's still, like, these fights, while they have been good, like, they're not blowing me out the fucking water. This isn't like Pereira versus Roundtree, Cormier, Gustafsson, Gaethje versus Chandler. It's not like a fucking back and forth war. It's a good fight, all right, but Evloev's not getting beat the fuck up in these absolute wars, or he's not even getting finishes. And especially now that Evloev's at top level competition, like, listen, man, this is the time where you get in decisions more than anything else. So if you were already struggling to get finishes before, then what the fuck is going to happen now? So honestly, man, just other than shitting on Evloev, who I do think is a good fighter, but I just think that just so boring, man. I'm so sorry. There's no personality there. There's no finishing ability. There's no urgency a lot of the time. So I don't know, man. The skills are there, but I just think that Gaethje would be too much. I think that Gaethje would be able to beat him here. The clear power advantage. It's night and fucking day here. Gaethje's hitting like a fucking truck and Evloev's hitting like a bar of soap. But I don't know. I think that, like I said earlier, Evloev's striking is underrated. It's sneaky good defensively and offensively. There's just no power there, but the striking, it's actually kind of clean at times. But I think that Gaethje's striking is just too much. Gaethje's one of the best strikers for lightweight standards, and lightweight is full of amazing strikers, so I feel like that says a lot. Gaethje's going to have the power. Gaethje's going to have the advantage in the striking. Gaethje is durable as fuck, and Evloev's not going to take his lights out. He's not going to submit him, so at the end of the day, Evloev could only really win a decision. Well, no shit, have you seen any Evloev fight? But I can't see him beating Gaethje in some kind of fucking war here, man. Gaethje would just find the good way of mixing the patience and technicality we've seen with the goofy goober ass, just swinging and fucking banging and hoping for the best. He finds a good in between with that. Like, we saw it especially right before the Max Holloway fight. So, and Gaethje's takedown defense is good enough and solid enough to where, listen, Evloev is no Khabib or Oliveira or Islam Makhachev. Like, Evloev's wrestling is good, it's efficient, but I don't think it'd be able to be used as efficiently against Gaethje, like against previous wrestlers that he's fought who may have beaten Gaethje, but I don't think that Evloev's going to be as dangerous for him in any regards compared to past guys that Gaethje has fought. So I'm going to be giving it to Gaethje here. I know that Evloev's got a good chin, but I don't think he's fought any guys like Gaethje before, so I think Gaethje would take his fucking lights out. So moving on, up next to number 2 versus number 2 here, Charles do Bronx versus Diego Lopez. This is a fucking banger, y'all. This is an amazing fight. Would love to fucking see this one day. Don't think we ever fucking will, but this is just one of those fantasy matchups that's so fucking good. But honestly, man, for as good as I think that Diego Lopez is, I'm gonna be going with Charles Oliveira here. You could argue these guys have pretty similar styles. I mean, Diego Lopez has a really solid, really good jiu-jitsu base, but his striking is fucking there as well, man. It's really been developing, especially from what we've seen in the UFC. It's crazy that we talk about Lopez like he's a guy that's been here for years. We talk about Lopez as like the friend that you've been talking about, like you know him since kindergarten, but you actually just met him a year ago, and now he's already your best fucking friend. That's how we talk about Diego Lopez. It's crazy to think that he just came on the scene a couple years ago, really. And 2024 was just last year alone, and that was where he really made the name for himself, really entered the rankings, and now flew all the way up. Like, he was unranked going into UFC 300. That was less than a year ago. So Diego Lopez, man, is just explosive on the feet. He has good striking, has a lot of pop behind his shots. shots. He's aggressive. He's relentless. His cardio can be questionable at times, but also I think it's underrated at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, I think people dwell a little bit too much on the Dan Ige performance, and just like when you look at things in general, or the Brian Ortega performance, I do think that Lopez, like, listen, for 5 rounds, like, maybe you should be a little concerned, but I do think that the cardio is underrated. It's there. The cardio advantage would clearly go to Charles Oliveira. I would also say the fight IQ goes to Oliveira, but the way these guys are similar, man, both these guys have good jiu-jitsu bases, very dangerous on the ground, but also, man, like, the striking is just also so clearly there, with very underrated power from Oliveira, and, you know, I wouldn't say underrated power from Lopez. Everyone knows the motherfucker hits like a truck, especially for featherweight standards, but yeah, these guys have a lot of similarities there in their style. And the thing with Oliveira too, we've been seeing him enter, especially in his last fight, this more patient and technical side of things, but like, the dude knows how to handle this fair share of just getting into fucking wars. Like, the entire peak Charles Oliveira title run that we saw, we know how he knows how to handle the pressure that other opponents can put on guys. We know how he can handle adversity. This isn't like 10 years ago Charles Oliveira where he's getting quitter allegations. Like, Charles Oliveira can handle adversity. Don't get me wrong, with Saryukin and Makhachev in moments, like, he's not the best when he's super uncomfortable in there, and Diego Lopez would present him in a lot of uncomfortable positions, whether it be on the feet or on the ground. I think this would be a complete fucking war, but at the end of the day, I think Oliveira's skill set, he just has more experience, especially against top-level competition. His skills are just more polished, they're more clean. He's been around the game for a while, and he just knows what the fuck is up, and I think that Lopez could be the next Charles Oliveira one day. And again, very good skills, and he very well-rounded. There's a lot of similarities between the two, but I just think Oliveira has his fair share more of experience, and just would be able, his skill set is just a lot more polished and perfected. So, not saying that Oliveira has the most perfect skill set in the fucking world, or perfect technique, or whatever the fuck, but you know what I'm trying to say. So, overall, this would be an absolute fucking barn burner, but I'm gonna be going with Charles Oliveira. Moving on to the last one we got here, number 1 versus number 1. Arman Tsarukyan for the lightweights, going against Alexander the Great, baby, Volkanovski for the featherweights. Time to finally show some more love to featherweights. I'm finally giving them another win here. I'm going with Alexander Volkanovski. Both these guys are extremely well-rounded. Tsarukyan is very fucking dangerous for him, clearly has the size advantage, but we've seen Volkanovski go against guys that are bigger than him. Most of the time, that's the fucking case, but Tsarukyan in his own right, man. Good striking, good wrestling, good cardio, good fight IQ. Tsarukyan's well-rounded as fuck, and coming off a great win over Oliveira, but at the end of the day, man, Volkanovski has that championship experience, alright? Been there, done that shit. And he gave Makhachev one of, if not his toughest fucking tests. So, Volkanovski, man, is also very well-rounded, and I would just give him the edge here. I think Volk would be able to take it, but I do think that Volkanovski is just, he's too good on the ground. His striking is too good as well. Like, he's not the biggest power puncher or anything like that, hence why Tsarukyan would I'd give the power advantage to, but Volkanovski is just so well-rounded, so good in every regard. He's not the most dangerous fucking guy, but underrated dangerous. Like, you know, you'd be surprised how much Volkanovski could just completely beat the fuck out of you, you know what I mean, whether it be on the feet or on the ground. So, the dude has mean ground and pound, but also just good striking in general. He's durable as fuck. Ignore the last 2 performances. Ignore the fucking Ilya Topuria thing. But Topuria just hits like a fucking tank. And then you have the Makhachev thing where short notice. So we're going to put some asterisks next to those, alright? Volkanovski has a good chin. I say what the fuck you want. He's durable, alright? We got to get past those past 2 performances and look at just overall here. So Volkanovski would be able to handle, I feel like, whatever the fuck Tsarukyan would throw at him. Tsarukyan is going to be fucking dangerous in there for him, but especially the longer this fight would go on, I would just favor it more and more for Volkanovski. I just feel like the cardio and the IQ would just eventually be able to get to the better of Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan's going to be probably more dangerous against a guy like Volk in the early going, but don't get me wrong, Tsarukyan's good everywhere. He's better in other places than others, but he's good everywhere, but so is Volkanovski. And while I do think the finishing ability is more so present for a guy like Tsarukyan, Volkanovski just has that championship level experience. He's seen it all before, mate. Just think skill for skill here. Volkanovski is one of the best UFC's ever seen, so I'm gonna be going with Volk here. No point talking about Makhachev versus Ilya. Alright, featherweight champ versus lightweight champ, because featherweight doesn't have a champion right now. So Topuria moving up to lightweight, it's a crazy fucking thing, but honestly, I do think it's for the best because it makes featherweight a lot more competitive, but it also makes lightweight more deep of a division. So anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. Let me know what you think of these matchups. Who do you think would win? Let me know what you think of my opinions. Were they shit or where did I get it right? Let me fucking know. We're just here to talk some MMA, so all the smoke here. Really appreciate y'all. If you guys could help me get to 1,000 subscribers, I'd really appreciate it. But otherwise, thanks so much for watching. All the smoke here. Appreciate y'all a lot, and I will see you all next time.